Hi, this is Pastor James coming to you with an uplifting message to give you some encouragement. And after this message, I'd like to share some things that are going on in the life of our congregation and our community that you can be a part of and support right now. Now, here's the big idea that's sadly too obvious and something that we all know to be true, and it's that people get riled up too easy. And when people get riled up, they make bad decisions. They become defensive. And most of the time, their worst side ends up showing through. Now, the people that get other people riled up aren't just big companies out trying to make a buck. It's not just TV personalities, but it's also even people from the religious establishment that try to get people riled up. And even people get themselves riled up. Why? Because it's addictive. When you get riled up, it actually shoots endorphins through your body. You have dopamine, you have adrenaline, you have all these addictive reactions that make it so you kind of want to return to it. And so my question for you is this: do you get riled up easily? Now, in Jesus' day, there were certain religious establishment leaders named Pharisees and Sadducees. And they would do and say anything at all in order to get the attention of as many people as possible. And they seem to have lived most of their life completely offended about as many things as they could possibly be offended. And they seem to have always been futzing about how other people lived their lives. And the best word that we have to describe these Pharisees and Sadducees, the word that we have today, and their teachings is this: their teachings were clickbait. It was tempting. It was something that people wanted to respond to. And they would put it out there, and they knew what they were doing. They were luring people in with this clickbait and drawing them in so that they would become addicted and they would start to become part of their riling up of other people. Now, here's what happens in the Bible. And it says that as the disciples were returning and getting into the boat, they returned to the other side of the lake, and they had forgotten to bring any bread with them. And Jesus said to them, "Wait a second, watch out, and beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees." Now, what was he saying? He is essentially saying, be careful, because purportedly religious people will often do anything to get you riled up. Now, by the way, bread is yummy. And when bread has yeast in it, it is really yummy. That means that it's fluffy. It's like the kind of bread that we normally eat with sourdough or hamburger buns, something fluffy like that. But when it has no yeast, it's not as good. I mean, it's a cracker. It's not as great to tasting and not as appealing, essentially. Now, when Jesus was talking about being cautious of the yeast of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, Jesus was actually telling his disciples to be careful to not get riled up, to get sucked into their clickbait conversations that are all about just getting you hooked on the next big concern or thing to futz about. You know, see, Jesus didn't want his disciples to fall for the bait, to become alarmist or panicky or sky is falling or woe is me teachings that were coming from the Pharisees all the time. Go back and look at the teachings of the Pharisees that Jesus was most offended about, or at least Jesus had the biggest problems with. And you will find that it is those strict, harsh teachings of the Pharisees that were all about judgment that Jesus was not on board with. In fact, Jesus knew that the teachings of the Pharisees and the Sadducees would be so tempting for the disciples. Why? Because the teachings of Jesus were about forgiveness and love and grace. And that teaching, honestly, isn't as appealing sometimes as the teaching of judgment and condemnation that is put out by people who are not essentially espousing and lifting up the gospel of Jesus. So here's what Jesus' instruction was: watch out, be careful, beware. Don't fall for the clickbait. Don't get sucked in by what Jesus referred to as the yeast of the Pharisees. It's going to be tasty. It's going to be attractive. It's going to be fun. It's even going to get your endorphins and your adrenaline going to start to turn into and even reflect the thinkings and attitudes of the Pharisees and the Sadducees. But Jesus says that the better way is the way of Jesus. Grace, love, kindness, compassion, understanding. Those are the ways of Jesus. Now, does it mean that you have opposition in the world? Yes, but the opposition doesn't change who you are and keeps you grounded, keeps your feet and your heart and your soul grounded in the very person of Jesus Christ. Now, this is a pretty tricky teaching, and I pray that you would have ears to hear, as Jesus says, and eyes to see, and a heart to listen to what Jesus is saying through this scripture. And if you would like to join us in this conversation in the future, or in the prayers that we have, that are really important prayers. We have some prayers right now that we're sharing together as a church about the fires and the victims of the fires in Maui and other things that are going on in our community, as well as praises and all of the amazing things that are going on in the life of our church. Would you please check out the Highlands Church weekly newsletter that is available, updated, always updated. So if there's anything new at the church, it is updated right away. So go check out the Highlands Church weekly newsletter. The link is here, and we'd love you to just pray along with us and learn with us and grow with us too. Now, here's one thing I'd like to share with you that's really exciting. This last Sunday, we had our beach baptisms, and we had more people than ever come out to the beach baptisms. We never had such a big beach baptism before. And here's the thing. Lo and behold, 35 people were baptized, and we had many more who became members of Highlands Church. This was Jesus' revolution. This was an incredible, incredible moment for our church and the community, and many people remarked that they had never seen anything like it. Now, I pray that this gets you excited about what's to come. All of these people looking to see what they're going to do, their next step of faith. And if that's you, here's some ideas. First of all, at Highlands Church, we're all about building communities. That's our whole purpose. We exist in order to build communities so that more people know the hope and joy of Jesus. So if you're participating in prayer, if you're listening to this, then you should consider yourself a community builder. Now, one of the big ways you can do that is by participating or even starting a small group in the next few weeks. Now you might say, someday I want to do this. You know what? Someday never comes. Put a date on the calendar and say, that's the day that I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to be a part of a small group. This last week, I also got to go to a birthday party of a member of our church. And at the birthday party, I saw so many friends. And they stopped for a moment. And they said, we need you to know, Pastor James, that this group exists because we attended a small group mixer at Highlands Church. And we ended up, through it, making 3 of our best friends. Everybody became best friends in the whole entire group. And so I want to encourage you. That can happen in your life. Don't give up on hope. Jesus is inviting you into something uncommon and beautiful. So whether you are deciding to be trying a small group or leading a small group, remember, you can build community and change the world through it. And God bless you. We know it's easy to say you're going to step out in faith, but when you take the steps that you've taken of grace and compassion and chosen not to go the way of being riled up and confrontational and biting in and surrounding yourself with the yeasty teachings, as they would say, the yeast of the Pharisees. Instead, you go the way of grace and compassion and mercy. Gosh, that's the way of Jesus. And what you will discover through that path of forgiving others and loving others and having compassion and goodness toward other people is you will discover true goodness. You will discover what it means to truly be filled. And so we're praying for you, and we're always here for you. And we love you so much. And we can't wait to see what God is about to do in your life. God bless, and take care.